Hey, David. I don't know if that's you or me, but I can't hear you. It could easily be. Oh, it's you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good morning / afternoon / evening.
Hey, Pete. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay, Pete?
Oh, yeah, I can. Sorry, my sound was down for a second.
Okay. The confusion continues because I think David and I were in here and one of us was having a sound issue and we think it was him, but we weren't sure.
Oh.
Hey, Dora. Good to see you again.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Dora.
Hi. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Excited and curious.
Yeah, I'll wait till a few more people join, and I'll do a quick introduction for you, Dora. I think you're probably going to be the only new person in the call today, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. / afternoon.
Oh, yeah. You're the exception here, I think, this morning.
You're right.
Oh, I guess we have one other. It's
yeah, I'm just going with the video so that you can actually see me.
perfect. Okay.
Hi, Dora. For some reason, there's nobody else.
Hello.
I think you have the wrong one. Just look in Slack channel.
Like, okay.
All right.
Okay, since we have a few people here now, oh, still some people joining. Spoke too soon, or maybe we'll give it another minute.
Hi, everyone.
You did.
Hello, just in case if you're wondering why I can actually speak while I'm on mute, I'm sitting next to Mike.
I was actually supposed to be in the same room, but found out late last night that I have COVID, unfortunately, which is obviously bad news.
It's a third meeting that happened to me in a row that we were like, oh, let's all get together again. No, we're actually not, because at least half of the people are not coming. So
All right. I think we can like kick it off now. David, do you want to get it started, or you want me to?
Before we start, I'll just do a quick introduction because it's Dora's first time here. So I know Dora personally from CloudBees, where she was an engineering director of engineering, right? I think that was your title, Dora. And Oleg is also familiar with Dora. He also used to work at CloudBees. So she's joining us for the first time at our community meeting, and really excited to have you here, Dora, and hopefully you can be involved as we go forward.
I'm super excited. Thank you.
Hey, Josh,
Yeah.
my first time here. Oh, sorry, Dora. I thought you.
No, go ahead.
I just want to say it's my first time here too at this group meeting. Although I've met Mike and Todd before. So
thanks, Josh. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
I neglected to recall that this is your first meeting attendance.
Yeah, so I guess we should maybe let them do a quick intro if you don't mind. Start with Dora and then move to you, Josh.
Yeah, so as Todd mentioned, I used to be at CloudBees I worked on a number of products there. Feature flag was the last one. And I've always been excited about feature flagging. And one of the pain points I always found is that it wasn't consistent. So I'm excited about this product, portable, being portable between vendors and things like that. So I'm really excited about this open source project. Now I work at Simple. It's a fintech company. Canadians are familiar with it. Non-Canadians have probably never heard of it. It's the Robin Hood of Canada, although that doesn't necessarily put it in a good light. We're the better Robin Hood. This is recorded. Oh my God. I tend to speak too much, so I'll stop here. And yeah, it's
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. I'm Josh Sirota. I work in the office of the CTO at Split, and I know Pato has been here in these meetings before. I work for him. He's our co-founder and CTO. I'm basically representing the company here today, and would think this crowd knows, but just to be clear, we're one of those vendors who does things inconsistently. But we're perfectly happy to help the world use feature flags in any way they can. So it's a great project.
Perfect. Yeah, welcome everyone.
Can I just tag myself on there as well? So this is my first time joining as well.
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm Dave. I work at Harness, also another one of those vendors that's kind of providing an inconsistent feature flag solution. So this seems really interesting because I guess we get a lot of customers who've implemented their own version of feature flagging, and then we're trying to figure out how we can align with that. So it seems like this solves a big problem for everybody.
Perfect. Yeah. Welcome, Dave. And good afternoon, Ben. So you're still connecting? Cool. I guess in the meantime,
yeah, Ben just said that he lost internet connection.
Oh, bummer. Okay. Cool. I guess in the meantime, David, did you want to kind of kick it off? And I think Pete, you have volunteered. If I don't, perfect. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Perfect. Then thanks everyone for the introductions. Usually just to start it off, I put it out there that we're always looking for some wonderful volunteers for the next meeting to be a scribe. So if you're interested, please feel free to put in your name at the top of the document. Yeah, and then the next meeting will be in 2 weeks. So other than that, we have on the agenda, the first item is from Alois. So that's the Cncf submission. So Alois, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, I just sneaked into the agenda because it's a very brief update and we will be done here quickly. So on the Cncf submission, we are currently, I think, project number 20 in Cncf Sandbox, which means for the last round of submissions, we didn't make the cut to being discussed. I reached out to DIMS and obviously they have a lot of backlog. I think it shouldn't really keep us back from continuing the work here. I think the only consequence is that by KubeCon, obviously we won't be a Sandbox project because the next voting is in June, which is obviously after KubeCon. And then I can also tag down the next one. There is a link in there for the press release. So nevertheless, we plan to do a press release about the consortium getting together and having it submitted to the CNCF. If you follow that link, I got some questions already why it is on GitHub. Why it is private, as this is going to be a press release, we don't want to kind of leak it out. So every one of you who requests access will obviously get access. We just want it to be publicly available on the internet before we do anything. The goal is to have the press release done by as part of KubeCon. There's a rough draft in there. This is just the Dynatrace PR team throwing something together so that we have something to discuss and talk about. Please reach out to your PR people and provide us your feedback. So the idea is to also meet with some press on site at KubeCon, and obviously also provide a quote if you want to. And the idea is how it's actually supposed to work is there's a common text that we all agree on when we talk about it, and obviously then there's specific pieces on top that everybody can use, in their own press releases, in their own blogs that they're using. I think Harness, CloudBees, whoever, they have their own split and others. You want to bring in your own aspects, but we'll just agree on why OpenFeature exists, what we're trying to build here, and then the rest is pretty much free for everybody else out there. We are currently also working on getting a quote from Redmond, so getting an analyst quote on that work that we're doing. So there is an initial briefing scheduled, I think, next week or the week after. So I can share the details on Slack later on. So we should be pretty well set. And again, if you want to like be included in any other way or talk to some of the PR teams or want to jump on a meeting, just drop in a note on what your involvement should be and let us know. Again, if you click on the link, you will be asked to request access and you'll get it immediately. That's pretty much everything from me. So that's just the organizational stuff.
Perfect, thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, then Mike, you're next up with, I guess, something related to KubeCon.
Yeah, so I guess that ties in nicely. So for KubeCon, I do have that form still there. So if you are going to be attending, please make sure to fill out that form. We'll be in touch with meeting times. It's actually proven to be rather challenging to find a meeting time, unfortunately. So I'm still kind of working on that. Worst case, we'll find some restaurant or nice area on the beach or something. We'll figure out something. So just definitely sign up for it, and also let me know like your t-shirt size too, because we ordered some kind of fun OpenFeature t-shirts. So related to that, I think that was my next bullet point, was a logo. We've always had that little placeholder, quick 2-second Google search light switch logo. We're looking at maybe changing that one. Let me check real quick. I had a couple of ideas. This is what we ended up putting on our t-shirts, but that doesn't mean that has to become the official logo. I'll just give a quick.
I thought the t-shirt was where it'll switch.
It is, exactly, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's not this one. I'm not sharing my screen yet. I may have to circle back to that, but basically just watch the GitHub issue with the logo. I'm going to post a couple of ideas around that. But at a high level, it was basically having a kind of like the iOS toggle, and that was the O in OpenFeature. So you're probably having a little bit of trouble visualizing that, but I'll put that in the Slack channel so you can take a look at it. Certainly provide feedback. It doesn't mean that we have to go with this, but it was kind of a thing that we could use for the t-shirts for the event. They're kind of fun. There's a dark mode and the light mode. So the toggle actually is like, change to the off position and stuff. I think you'll like it, but certainly let me know what your opinions are on that. Last part to that is figuring out just a logo piece, so without the name, so we can have like kind of a fave icon for websites and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'll post that in that GitHub issue. Make sure it's in the Slack channel. Definitely let me know if you have any feedback, ideas, concerns, anything like that. But I'd like to get that finalized as quickly as possible so we can go ahead and, yeah, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. So that's the white mode. And then if you scroll down, there's the dark mode there. So you can see the toggle's kind of off. So kind of a fun way of doing the two different variations, I thought. And then for KubeCon, we'll try to have, we'll have both versions available. So hopefully we can have a combination of the two. If nothing else, it's a good kind of discussion point for, why we have the two different versions of the t-shirt and stuff like that. And I think it really highlights, feature toggling at a very basic level, but kind of a fun way to do that. Cool. Next topic
is still yours on branding, I think.
Yep, exactly. It's basically the same thing. So right now we basically have a placeholder website for the most part. Once we have kind of a logo defined, it'd be really great to make sure that the site itself is kind of refreshed. So if anyone has any interest in helping out with that, I'd certainly love some support there, especially when it comes to like copy, look and feel, anything like that. So if anyone has any interest, definitely reach out either in Slack or directly to me, and we can try to figure that out. Last one was the hotel semantic convention. So still have that issue open. I started working on the pull request for the OpenTelemetry team. It's not too late to, update that issue with any ideas or concerns, but definitely take a look if you have a chance. The important part here is once that's a spec in OpenTelemetry, that means vendors that are spec compliant can understand what a feature flag means and can visually represent that in traces. That would work well in Dynatrace, Datadog, any of the other big OpenTelemetry or I guess OpenTelemetry spec compliant vendors, which really I think unlocks a lot of interesting possibilities for feature flagging, especially at the enterprise level.
Actually, thinking about it, we even have the other way around because we would know which attributes we could use based on semantic conventions. What's like available on other spans, for example.
That's part of the context story.
Yeah.
So that's another way to look at it too. So if you look at the current OpenTelemetry semantic convention, there's possibly ways of extracting that information to use for flag evaluation. We also, and not to derail the conversation too much, but we did talk about this last community meeting about using OpenTelemetry baggage. I did run an experiment with that, ran into a couple limitations there. It's basically limitations of the OpenTelemetry spec that makes it a bit challenging, but I did talk to one of the maintainers there. We do have a few ideas. So I don't really have a specific follow-up on that, but if we are able to figure that out, we could basically use baggage to send flag context information across services. So pretty interesting, definitely powerful, but it was going to require a bit more work, and maybe we can do a follow-up for that if anyone's really interested in that topic. Let's see, and then I think that might be it for me.
Actually,
Any questions on any of those?
unless you still have hotel semantic convention, but I guess this was it.
Yep, that's it. Is there any
Perfect.
questions
Okay.
on any topics? Perfect.
Should we open an issue with OTel just for visibility? Because currently the issue is only on OpenFeature and not on OTel.
I was planning on opening just a pull request and then referencing this ticket, but
Okay,
whatever the recommendation is. So, yeah.
Okay. Then the next item is from Todd. This is on the specification. So Todd, over to you.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so this past week, we merged our first partial draft of the spec. Really happy with all the feedback we got on that. That was really awesome. It was great to see so many people participate in that. There's another PR open for the provider, which is basically the layer of the specification that does all the mapping from the OpenFeature API that application authors see to the various vendor backends or whatever kind of flag control plane is being deployed. I want to do a really quick tour of some of the spec. I won't go into too much detail. It's really more around the tooling and some of the high-level philosophies that we're leveraging here. We're pretty lucky because we have kind of an advisement from some of the OTel maintainers, so they were able to kind of help us hit the ground running and share some best practices and lessons learned from early in their specification development. So I've tried to take those lessons learned and apply them early in our spec development. I'll do a quick share session here. So yeah, obviously in the OpenFeature project, there's a spec repo. Since the most recent PR was merged, we have more of a specification here. A lot of these are stubbed, but the major addition was the evaluation API. So this is basically what the application author making the basic use of feature flags is going to see. This defines it all in a language agnostic way. And we have links to some of the stub sections as well as the sections that are being developed now. So one of the things that we kind of started with from the beginning and we took away from the OTel guys was kind of conforming to this W3C specification, the QA framework spec guidelines. So this is basically a spec for writing specs, a little bit meta, but it really just captures all the different things that are good to talk about in a spec, things like conformance clauses, things like generating QA assertions. And then there's also references to RFC 2119, which basically defines keywords for use and requirements for normative sections. So it's very easy to see, looking at your spec, what is normative, what needs to be done, what can be done optionally, what should never be done, that kind of stuff. So we tried to kind of from the ground, from the get-go, make our spec conformant to these ideas. We even have a little bit of tooling, and that's all I'm going to demo here. But we have a little script that was donated by one of the OpenTelemetry contributors that actually parses our spec and generates a set of QA assertions conformant to the specifications I was just showing. And that would allow you to generate a test suite, for instance. So we wrapped in a little make file, but I'll type make and show you what I mean. So I type make, and what this basically does is a little wrapper around the script I'm mentioning, and it outputs this JSON blob. And this JSON blob here is basically just a file that has very terse, very technical normative sections, right? So a lot of the cruft and background information and code samples are completely taken away, and you just have these specified, these RFC compliant specified normative sections. So you could use this kind of JSON blob to generate a like a behavior-driven test file, for instance, or just, you know, as you're implementing, look at this and make sure that these specific normative sections that your implementation complies to them. We're going to continue to develop some CI processes around this file, do some validation on it, generate it automatically. But it is pretty cool to see our spec implement this kind of thing from the get-go. So if there's no questions about that, I'll move on to the next section. Okay, so yeah, I already talked about the W3 CQA assertion. I guess the next thing to talk about was the SDK. So I know we do have an SDK under development, a Java SDK that Justin's working on. I won't talk more about that because I think he's going to say something about it later. But we are looking for interested parties to take over ownership of implementing SDKs for various languages. So I think we have the TypeScript, JavaScript covered. Obviously, we have some participation already in the Java SDK, but we're interested in .NET. We're interested in Go. We're probably interested in Python. So if any of you are interested in taking responsibility for an SDK now that the spec is under active development, that might be something you want to kind of take ownership of as we go forward. And obviously, you can continue to contribute to SDKs that are under development, like the Java SDK or the TypeScript, JavaScript Node SDK. If there's no
I got a quick question about that. With the I guess I'm wondering, like with TypeScript and JavaScript as one example, and then Java on the other, there's like the SDK implementation, and then there's like the client side versus server side piece. Like, is the goal that for example, that Java SDK would also be would work in Android or a server side context, or would the TypeScript work if I'm running it in a React app and if I'm running it in a Node app, or do we want to split those? I know that from my from my informal analysis of me looking in my brain and trying to remember just now, I think most vendors have tend to have a different SDK for like client side stuff versus server side stuff. I would assume that there's good reasons for that. So yeah, I
would guess that our client side SDK would be the same, but the providers might be different. That would be my guess, but
the real reason why those things I think you see typically different between client side and server side from the vendors has everything to do with packaging and nothing to do with the kind of language, the SDK interfaces themselves. You know, for example, if you're using JavaScript in Node, on the server side, you would package up the whole SDK bundle as an NPM module. Right, but if you're using it as you know, from a browser, you wouldn't do that. You'd make it available on a CDN via an HTTP URL, right? And that also may imply some differences having to do with just kind of scoping and how things are exposed to the underlying app and all that. But I mean, fundamentally, the reason those things are that way is to do with packaging, distribution.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with the idea that probably API, and when I say the API, I mean the zero dependency interfaces that are published, and the very basic aspects of the flag evaluation runtime. I think those would probably be the same in a server and client, and a lot of the underlying providers, extra functionality. So things like potentially hooks and those types of things would probably exist in a different repo, more implementation oriented. That's how I see that working in my head, but this is all theory crafting at this point. I think that we've for now deferred client-side flag evaluation to some extent. We've mostly focused on the server. Obviously, that's not going to be the case for forever, and we need to think about the client. But yeah, I do agree that there's a lot of, the big difference is probably going to be in packaging, and probably more on the implementation side than the fundamentals of flag evaluation that the application author is going to see. That's my high-level response, but it's something we're aware of, and I don't think we've spent that much time on it yet. I think we're focusing for the time being mostly on server implementations.
If we can help out with any of the SDKs, what's the right way to go about it? Do we put our name in the doc there, or who would be good to reach out to get help to get started?
Yeah, so I would start by joining the Slack channel. So we can help you to do that. That's probably a good place to start, and then we can open up a repository and get started with some basic code. Everything at this point is experimental, so any SDKs would be considered experimental. The spec itself is experimental, so at this point it's more or less just answering questions. But there's obviously some infrastructural concerns around this too. So that kind of brings me to my next point, which is something that came up in discussions yesterday as well. We may need hosting solutions for SDK artifacts in various languages. So I'm right now squatting on the npm module namespace, but we're going to need similar spaces in various repositories across many languages. So for Go I think is all the packages are namespace based on the GitHub repo, so that probably won't be a problem for us. Maven Central requires proof of domain ownership, I believe. So we own openfeature.dev. We could publish it under that name. If we don't want to, we should probably secure a domain eventually for Maven Central. There's probably other examples too. I'm not too familiar.
Oh, we talked about Docker too. We'll have to make sure.
I may maybe to quickly jump in here. I think it might actually be a good time right now. Also back to Dave's question that we define at least interim leads for the various language SDKs as we are going to move there. I think that Justin also started to write on the Java piece according to the agenda. So I think people should just state which SDKs they want to work on, because then we can distribute all of this work across the team, that not everything stays necessarily with you, Todd. I think there's people who can really help out there.
Right, yeah, agreed. I agree with you. Maybe a good place to start is to open an issue. So if you're interested in taking a particular SDK, open an issue, and then we can decide how to proceed from there. So open an issue in the project. And we'll take it from there. I think that's all I had.
Okay.
That
Okay.
puts me next.
Yeah.
So I built a janky Java SDK. It currently supports Booleans and strings. It does not support provider context transformation, because that seemed a little hard to figure out when I was working on it. But I think it's good enough to get like a basic thing like proof of concept. That's what I'm going to try to do internally with our feature flagging tool. I am running into a roadblock around packaging, which is I've only ever written Java code in Amazon and Google. And they don't use any of the common packaging tools. And so I don't actually know how to release things to Maven Central. Maven Central seems to only want release versions. And the thing that I would really like is snapshot versions, which are like whatever is the latest thing that was inside GitHub, which will be very useful for the stuff that we're doing. So if anyone has Java packaging experience, that would be hugely useful to me. Or even if you know of someone that I can spend 15 minutes with, that'd be really helpful.
I can work with you.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can help with that as well. We've run that gauntlet trying to get stuff onto Maven, and yeah, I mean it's pretty secure. Well, a lot more secure.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Oleg.
I was only going to mention, I did find there's the OSSRH. I'll put a link in chat. So this is, I believe, a public open source repository that does support snapshots. I think it's kind of like a free project that Sonatype pays for. That's the impression I get, at least.
Yeah, we use this at Split OSSRH. So that's also an option.
So my understanding with this is that it applies all of the same checks and rigor that Maven Central does, but allows snapshot builds. So you can kind of validate everything against this and then promote to Maven Central.
That's exactly right.
Maybe a good, perfect. Thanks, Josh, for confirming that. So yeah, this may be a good place to start with the Java publishing.
There may be additional CI spam inside our Slack channel. I don't know if we want to move that somewhere else, but as I get packaging and CI set up, there's a lot of like, commit something and see if CI works.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my concern actually initially when we added the app. We may want to consider having like a OpenFeature -dev channel or something like that, or just only doing like very specific like pull requests or in very specific repositories or something like that make the most sense to me. It does make it look like our Slack channel is super active, but I don't think we want it to be active because of spam.
Yeah, I mean, so usually the CNCF channels are actually used for externals rather than the project team themselves. Like most of the CNCF channels are just for people who are eventually interested in the project and not project internals. So if you look at most of the CNCF projects, they actually have their own Slack workspaces where they run everything. Because if you think this through, then there will be a channel on Java SDK, Go SDK, TypeScript SDK, server side, client side, provider implementation. So I think eventually we'll grow to a state where we will need like a more better communication environment anyways. Usually, I think most of us are using Slack. I think the only downside with Slack, as most of you will be aware of, is for an open source project with an undefined number of users, it's just incredibly expensive and very unpredictable. So I think the main decision is whether to stick to Slack or use another solution, but I think eventually we'll move out of the CNCF space. If you look at most other projects, pretty much the same. Like look at Oracle, look at OpenTelemetry while they're using Gitter, which I think is horrible. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's I think up to the team what we want to use, but I would move it out of that like one single channel eventually.
Yeah, but I mean, the immediate problem is figuring out what we do with the GitHub bot, and perhaps I guess my proposed solution would be we create another channel that's dedicated to like that, or we can restrict it to very specific things like a pull request against like the spec repo or something, and that's about it for now. So I'm not sure if any of those.
I think to Alois's point, it makes sense to instead of creating more channels here, we should keep this as a more public channel and find a solution for more fine-grained chat. I think that's right. I think it's kind of going to be unsustainable. So I would vote that I would vote that we ratchet back all of the warnings to just new PR to main, if we can get that granular, and then new issue. I think that's probably going to cover it for now, and then maybe look at an open source free alternative. I mean, I think there's like Rocket Chat. I don't know if that still exists, but Getter, I'm not partial to any, but I agree with the assertion Alois is making. I think we should probably just keep the current Slack channel as a very public channel. And
could we split the difference and just create a new channel that's just for now, like just so that we don't have to decide the new whatever thing, just create a new channel that in the CNCF Slack for the time being that's just, you know, open feature noise or something, and then we can make this decision without continuing to have that kind of all that noise in the GitHub.
You can ask at some point, we will be kindly asked to be at least a sandbox project first. But yeah, knowing admins, we can ask for that.
We can ask.
Yeah, I mean, I can create the channels easy like that. That's just allowed. It's pretty open on the CNCF workspace actually. So I guess we could either just create. I'd probably come up with something other than noise because that sounds bad.
Let's call it dev.
Dev, yeah. So I could either do that, or we could, or I guess we could just heavily restrict it in the current channel. So whatever the preference is, both of those options are easy, and we can kind of defer the more elaborate solution, I guess, for another time. So any preference on those options? All right, we'll figure out something. I guess let us know, but we'll try to cut down on the noise there.
Can I propose, is anybody interested in doing a little bit of research in terms of an alternative for Slack? I mean, I agree with, we can go either way on this decision right now, but maybe it would be a good idea to, if somebody's interested in volunteering, maybe somebody has time to, or some ideas. Dora? Oh, thank you. That would be great. So yeah, maybe you could, as a takeaway, just research some other possible communication channel that besides
they probably
Slack.
May even be able to be Slack. They probably have something for open source projects or something.
There's also a tag, there's also a maintainer channel within the CNCF that other projects are using. So we might just reach out what works best for others. I mean, to some extent, it's like personal taste, whether you want to use Skitter, whether you want to use Slack, or whether you want to use, just looking what I already have on my phone, out of the Discord. So I think options are there and are plenty. At the end of the day, I think it doesn't really matter as long as people can easily join. I think the biggest downside of Slack is really the cost piece, and that you lose history otherwise, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, so we can check on that, but everyone already has Slack, obviously. Everyone's already in that, or most people are already on that channel. So perfect. Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, then the last item for now is from Oleg on the open feature governance and technical steering.
Yeah, just closing the voting item. So 2 weeks ago, we made a proposal for the Bootstrap governing board and technical steering committee. So there are 2 issues there. And basically, as we agreed, we started async voting on GitHub issues. And right now there is no votes against the proposal. Just a second, do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So here, what do we have? So for the governing board, yes, we agreed last time we go with 5 members and we reserve 2 seats until more parties join. So all votes are plus. If you haven't voted yet, it's your last chance to speak against. And pretty much the same for the technical steering committee. So 3 individuals to form initial steering committee, and we remain quite flexible. So if needed, we can grow this entity and have more people. So question to the participants: do we want to wait more, or do we just approve these results and basically just consider it decided, and then I will implement it in the charter? Okay.
I think so just to call out to make sure we agree, I think we can we're saying we can merge the proposals as is, both for the governing and the technical steering, and then subsequently we can add more people, right? So we don't want to be at an even number ideally, but we'd like to be up to 7. So later we could add more people if we felt like it.
Yeah, right now we are not limited. We still remain in the bootstrap phase. So yeah, we can grow governing boards. We've needed 9 is quite common in open source projects. While going after 11, probably too much, but yeah, it's possible. And for the steering committee, adding 2 or 4 more people is totally feasible.
Great.
Okay, so.
Okay. All right. Yeah, for the moment, there are no other items in the agenda unless anyone has something else they'd like to bring up or further discuss. No?
Okay, so basically for the governance stuff, I just implemented, and we consider that voting is concluded, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine for now. We can have more PRs if we want to add people later. I mean, I'd certainly like to get up to 7, but I don't see why we can't merge it as is.
Okay. And
I guess one practical takeaway, if we, oh, sorry, somebody else was speaking. Go ahead.
No, go.
One practical takeaway, we mentioned the different repositories that we may need to kind of get space for. I don't know if anybody else has any specific languages or runtimes that have, associated repository space, like standard public repositories, like equivalent to Maven Central or NPM. But if you do have one of those in mind, please speak up, because we should kind of get those namespaces as soon as possible. Maybe I'll do some research into Python. I really don't know that much about Python, so I'll try my best to figure out where that belongs. But I think we have that and probably .NET. So I think there's a standard NuGet repository. I don't know if anybody knows about that either, but we should probably do what we can to nail down those locations. Does anybody here have familiarity with either of those repositories or artifacts?
I'm familiar with Python. They don't have scoping in the way that NPM does.
I don't, but I can offer that we currently here at Split, we distribute our SDKs as open source in I forget how many languages. I mean, well over a dozen languages, and we're in some sort of solution for all those things. And I don't have the answers, but I have people who can answer them. So I can probably get some guidance for any of those languages or others.
I think the ones that stand out to me right now that we don't have any movement on so far are Python and .NET. So if you could take that as a takeaway, Josh, that would be awesome.
I will do that.
Yeah, maybe one other topic on like the whole Cncf submission as we come to the end here. As all of you are Cncf members, I would recommend maybe also letting the Cncf know. I got to DIMS, the Cncf TOC chair, that you're interested in moving this project forward. I think some more messaging towards the CDF that this would be in our all interest to move this project forward quickly would be appreciated. I mean, right now they keep hearing obviously from me, but if they keep hearing from more people, that will definitely be helpful. And like these meetings happen like every now and then, and I think it would be helpful if like more of you who are CNCF members have a short message towards the TOC that this is something that you are interested in moving forward quickly. And actually that's the reason for me why the CNCF, amongst others, exists, that we can work together on a foundation managed project on something cross company. So yeah, reach out to me if you want to coordinate on this, but I think it just helps to give it a bit more urgency within the CNCF than like just following that process of like taking down maybe 5 projects a review, because right now this would more or less put us into almost summer next year, which is ridiculous.
Last point too, so since Todd put a couple pull requests out recently for the spec, especially the most recent one that's currently open, that one's related to the provider piece. So basically my ask would be like, all the vendors should definitely have a look at that. That one's, of course, it's not set in stone when it's merged, but this is a good opportunity to take a look at it, make sure that you agree with everything. And then, just certainly let us know your concerns and we can make some adjustments there. But this is an important one to make sure that people are on the same page.
And I have a last one. So next week on Tech App Delivery, we should actually really do a presentation on OpenFeature. So whoever volunteers wants to do it should just go ahead. It will also help us to get more traction around the project.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
All right. Then if there's nothing else, I'll renew my deep request if someone would like to volunteer to be scribe for the next meeting. Otherwise, I'll send out kind reminders in our Slack channel.
I can go ahead and do it next time.
All right. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, thanks for doing it today, Pete. Appreciate it. Cool. Sounds good. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
Great.
All right, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Bye.